More than half the world's children are threatened by conflict, according to a new report by Save the Children. It also says widespread poverty and discrimination threaten their lives. It's estimated 1 million children live in dangerous environments. And where governments are working to make things right, the report says they're failing to bridge the increasing gap between rich and poor. Well, joining me now is Simon Wright. He's the Director of International Development Policy and Advocacy at Save the Children. Good to speak to you. So, what is the most striking result of the report?
Well, I think the report tries to draw attention to a very real problem, which is that over half of the world's children are living in situations where their lives are at risk of what we call the end of childhood because of the inequality they face, conflict that they're involved in, or discrimination, particularly discrimination against girls. And we've used this term end of childhood as a way of trying to draw attention to the fact that the things that children should have, the right to grow up safely, to live their childhood life to the best of their abilities, is really being threatened for 1.2 billion children in the world. And we've calculated that by looking at the situation and comparing some really important indicators to tell us what life is like for those children.
And which countries or regions are children most at risk?
Well, we can see that if you look at different factors, of course, you can see different problems. So we know that in countries in the Middle East, there are some long ongoing conflicts which are ruining children's lives. In Yemen, in Syria, children are very, very vulnerable to the conflict that's happening there. But also if you start to look at poverty and the effect that has on ending children's childhood, through lack of access to education, lack of access to essential health care, or being forced into early marriages, then we can see that many parts of the world, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, children do not have their right to a worthwhile, enjoyable childhood. It gets cut short, and that's what we're trying to draw attention to.
So is the international community doing enough, though? What needs to be done to tackle this issue? Simon, could you hear me there?
No, I think I missed the last question, sorry.
Yes, is the international community doing enough? What needs to be done?
Well, there is a positive aspect to this story, which is that 95 countries, we think that the situation is improving. As economic development is happening, as children's rights are being respected, then we are seeing improvements. But in 40 countries, we think the situation is getting worse, so children are more vulnerable. The world made a big commitment to every country to ensuring that children have the right to survive, the right to education, the right to protection. And they made those commitments for the Sustainable Development Goals. But crucially, they made them for every child. It wasn't just to look at national averages in a country, it was to look at whether every child was benefiting from the progress under the Sustainable Development Goals.
Well, that's all the time we have. Thank you very much for that there, Simon.